busy. I don't ever smoke the dizzy, but we can always share some ditsies. It's just a cup in time. This song doesn't have to run. Life's all of us, not every moment we can be feeling fine. I wanna share a moment, just a second if you will, maybe even a cup of thrill. We could share this performance. It's tea time, come sit with me.
Well, welcome guys. Today I am in the house and I have not just one, but I have two incredible guests that are sitting in the back room. I have Stephen Joseph and Andy Case, and we're going to talk about the Snoodles in space. That's right. We're going to take you on a little noodle run today. But before we get started, you guys know how Miss Liz rolls. Get over to all those platforms, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, all those good platforms, and check out those podcasts, podcast apps, Spotify, Listen Notes, Podbean, all those good platforms. Give those a like, follow, and subscribe, and get these tea times out there because they do make a difference for the guests and for the people that are listening that resonate with the topics that Miss Liz brings to the table. But before we get started, you guys know Miss Liz. I'm disclaimer and then a beautiful intro, and then I'm going to get these two guys in here and we're going to spill some tea. And Stephen's tea is utilizing skillful, means binky, bunky, bonk a noodle. That's his tea that we'll be serving. And then Andy's tea is terrifically engaging artwork and never give up. Those are the teas that we are serving today in the house. Disclaimer for Miss Liz's Tea Time live show. Miss Liz's Tea Time is a global platform dedicating to sharing real life stories, diverse perspectives, and meaningful conversations that inspire awareness, healing, and connection. I, Miss Liz, is going live using StreamYard. Before leaving a comment during the live broadcast, please grant StreamYard permission to display your name at StreamYard.com. Please be advised that all the content brought forward during any Tea Time show is presented in good faith. However, discussions may include opinions, beliefs, and perspectives that do not necessarily represent the views of Miss Liz or the Tea Time platform. Information shared by guests is based on their own experience and is perceived to be accurate at the given time of airing. All guests, viewers, and participants are responsible for using their own good judgment when considering any action or decision that may relate to these discussions. Some episodes may cover sensitive topics, including but not limited to trauma, abuse, grief, mental health, and other emotionally triggering subjects. Listeners' and viewers' discretion is strongly advised. Tea Time with Miss Liz is an open discussion forum designed to offer insight, inspire awareness, and create connection. It is not a substitute for professional, medical, legal, or therapeutical advice. If you require professional support, please seek assistance from qualified professionals or trusted resources in your area. If you have questions regarding this disclaimer or the content of the discussion, you are welcome to contact me, aka Miss Liz, directly at my email at bookingmissliz@gmail.com or check out my link tree at Miss Liz's Tea Time. By choosing to participate in, comment on, or view these live shows, you acknowledge and accept this disclaimer. Your participation is entirely voluntary. I, Miss Liz, welcomes you to join the conversation with an open heart, and if at any time you feel this platform is not right for you, I respect your wishes and decision and welcome you back whenever you are ready. Tea Time with Miss Liz is serving truth and awareness one cup at a time. Well, welcome to Tea Time with Miss Liz, where imagination meets purpose and creativity brings stories to life in most unexpected ways. Today we have not one, but two incredible guests, a dynamic duo who proves that when words and visual come together, magic happens. Please join me in welcoming Stephen Joseph, award-winning author and creator of the beloved Snoodles Universe, and Andy Case, award-winning illustrator and cartoonist, where art has captured imagination around the world for over 30 years. Together, they bring us the wildly imaginative world of Snoodles, where silly ideals lead to powerful lessons and where humor, creativity, and heart comes together to help both children and adults navigate life. Stephen's storytelling blends wit, emotional intelligence, and real-life lessons, while Andy's vibrant detail gives those stories a visual life that leaps off the page. Their latest adventure, Snoodles in Space, Escape from Zoodletraz, takes readers on a journey of teamwork, resilience, and thinking outside the noodle. But beyond the fun and laughter, their work reminds us that something important, that's creativity, is a tool for problem solving, connecting, and growth at any age. So grab your cup and lean in. Today's tea time is about imagination, collaboration, and the power of storytelling to spark joy and possibilities. Let me get these guys in here and let's spill some tea. Welcome, guys. It's an honor to have you here.
Thanks for having us.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Well, it's nice to see that you're both here and we can spill some tea together. So let's get started. Stephen, I'm going to start with you, and then Andy, I'm going to go down to you, and I'm going to jump up and down. Stephen, who are you as a little guy, and who are you now?
Who am I as a little guy?
As a little guy. We want to get to know the little guy and then the big guy.
Oh, the little guy when I was a little kid?
Yep.
Okay, so when I was a little kid, I pretended to be a cute little kid, but I was rather mischievous. So the thing I would do is like I grew up in New York City in the Bronx, and I would go to Bat Day at Yankee Stadium where they're handing out 50,000 weapons to most of the people get drunk, but they thought in the South Bronx it's a good idea to give everybody bats, a lot of them who've been drinking lots of beer. I was a little kid, I didn't do that, but I would get the dollar bleacher seats and I would get a bat. And not only me, all my friends did this too, but I was the best one doing it because I was the cutest, most innocent looking kid. So I would bring it to a seat. Somebody would watch the bat, and then I would go up to another ticket guy, go, "Excuse me, sir, I don't have a bat. Can I have a bat, please?" And I get another bat. And then so we would all end up with like 10 bats each. Not why we need, like, it was 10 kids, why we needed 100 bats for a baseball game. We didn't. It was just like the satisfaction of seeing how many bats we could get. And of course, then we would have to schlep all the bats home. You know, we're like, people are looking at us. So look, they got 10 bats each. Walking with the bats, you know. So that was me as a little kid.
And who are you today?
Today, I'm way more mature than that, just as mischievous, and I decided to use my mischievousness to become first a lawyer, and then write silly stories like this, like the Snoodles, Zoodles, Cadoodles, Poodles, Noodles, anything to have oodles of fun.
I love it. And Andy, who were you as a little guy, and who are you now?
As a little guy, I was a drawer. I've been drawing since I was 4. So no matter what happened, I was drawing. I used to love gaming. I used to love playing sports, but mostly I was constantly drawing cartoons, making my own comics, drawing pictures for people. Yeah, so I was a very boring kid.
And who are you now as a grown man?
I'm an illustrator, so I've brought drawing into my world. I'm also a teacher in a great school in Nottingham. I make music, so I'm very creative.
It's a beautiful singing voice, such a voice like angels, like an angel singing.
I've checked out some of your music, Andy. You got some really good country music going on there.
Oh, thank you very much.
Anybody that wants to check that out.
So very creative still. I like to teach people how to do things. I like to pass on knowledge and skills so that other people can find their path. That's quite important to me. And working with Stephen, yeah.
So how long have you guys known each other, and how did you find each other?
Wow, that's about 10 years, is it?
Is it 10 years? I don't know if it seemed, wow. Probably the first book was like 2019 or 20. Yeah. So my first book was The Last Surviving Dinosaur, the Tyrantocranchosaurus. It was about the smallest dinosaur, but the most dangerous dinosaur on the planet, how all humans evolved from the Tyrantocranchosaurus, who kept complaining. And then, when babies are born, you see them crying. It's because they evolved from the Tyrantocranchosaurus. So all humans come from this dinosaur. But anyway, that's a different story. I didn't meet him. I didn't talk to Andy. If I wanted more corrections, the publisher would charge me extra. And not that I had lots of corrections, because Andy's work was brilliant in the first draft, So, but anyway, I did have a couple, so I had the idea for Snoodles, Cadoodles, Poodles, and lots of noodles, probably like 2020. So it's like 6 years ago. Um, and I looked up Andy on. There's this thing called the internet, which is a wonderful place. So oh, just an internet, and I looked in the internet and I found Andy's website and email address, and I wrote to Andy, and he wrote back to me that he would love to work with me. Um, so we communicated together, writing, and then that was the start of this more intimate collaboration and friendship. So I get to fly to see Andy in person, which is a lot of fun, and have a beer or two, and a few good meals. So that's what it started. Um, the collaboration and nudging. Andy's good to nudge me on to come up with something else, and then it took off from there.
Well, it kind of goes into the question that just came in from Strategy Show. How did you both start collaborating on this project?
I think Stephen's right. On the first book, we had a middleman in a publisher who very much controlled the action. But then with the start of the Snoodles series, Stephen emailed me directly. And I'm very much one that the script was nothing like I'd ever seen before. It was so interesting, so new. It kind of spurred my creative juices. And as a result, I came up with all of these weird concepts and weird ideas. But instead of going through the publisher, I would just send it to him because I had his email address. Here, what do you think of this? Oh, let's do this. Oh, what about this? So the book started getting bigger and bigger. And then afterwards, after we did the first book, I suggested, there's more in this. These characters are great. What else have you got? So Stephen started creating some amazing scripts and amazing story blocks. And then we kind of went off on our own and did our own books. And it all kind of started from there, but we talk every day. We're making a website at the moment, so we're communicating about that, and we're having great chats about doing other things with the Snoodles brand. But it's been a revelation to me. It's really spurred me on.
And just with this book in particular, you asked about collaboration. The amazing thing about this book is that Andy, in November 2023, releases his first music album, Leap of Faith, fabulous album. And at that point, I didn't have the story in my head, but I'm listening to his music. And there's one song, Break Free, and it has the sound of like a spaceship taking off. There's another song, Lost Souls in the Dark. And I hear like the guitar, like a spaceship, like zooming through space. And then there's a funny song. I should have sent a card, because this about a guy who tries to write a love song and he can't. I guess music sucks, and that got me the idea. The main thing around this book is Cloodle the Grand Roodle from the planet Zoodle. Hears about Swifty Swoodle and Doo-Wop-A-Doodles, has this gazillion-dollar world tour, and he thinks, oh, I could be even bigger than Swifty Swoodle, and he comes to Earth and he sucks. So he's humiliated and he wants revenge, and that's how the story took off. But it only happens because Andy decides, oh, you know what? We'll release a music album, and he doesn't even tell me. Like, I knew him for like years. He didn't say, "Oh, like, oh boy, I am such a good singer. Oh, you should hear my music." It's like this shock to the system, and yeah. And then the story happened. So that collaboration happened because of this magical musical adventure that Andy takes me on.
What kind of comes into the question that just came in from Kelly Grant is how did you come up with the idea of Snoodle in space? And that's kind of what you just shared, Stephen, a little bit. And then we have another question that is similar is what inspired the idea behind Snoodles in Space? And I'm going to pull up the book so everybody can see what book we're talking about as well. Let me pull that up, and then you guys can explain a little bit about the cover and all of the illustration and all that good stuff and how it came together.
So Snoodle. So this is the fourth book. The first book was Snoodles, Cadoodles, Poodles, and Lots of Noodles. And at the time, I have my two adult books, Grown Up Guide to Effective Crankiness, the Crankosaurus Method, and then Cranky Superpowers, Life Lessons Learned from the Common Crankosaurus Chronicles. So I'm writing on crankiness. And so I'm all focused on that. So the first story came into my mind. I'm an attorney by the day, and I was really busy, and I was feeling like I barely scratched the surface. So I had this character, Pierre Latoudle, who restores paint by scratching, but he can't restore this painting. He barely scratches the surface. And I had just written a chapter on Crankosaurus cooking. So I already was writing about cooking because I love to cook. And I have that in my head, and I'm sleeping and I'm thinking noodles, and then oodles, poodles, whatever, and that came up. So that was the first book, and then the next book centered around like, again, I'm writing about crankiness, and there's parents like it's not rocket science, it's not brain surgery when somebody's doing something really simple. A kid's doing like making your bed, and you can't make your bed right. And if I say, it's not brain surgery, and so if I tell you you're a failure doing the most simplest thing, then why bother at all? I'm not going to get out of bed. Geez, so I'm writing about that. And then, this story comes up. Like I could have these parents who are abducted by aliens, and they always tell their kids that, it's not brain surgery, and it's not rocket science, and these aliens are looking for a brain surgeon and a rocket scientist because Cloodle the Grand Roodle has genius brain, which is like athlete's foot, the fungus of the brain. And they need a rocket scientist to fix their rockets, their engines, because on their planet, all the rocket scientists and brain surgeons would poo-poo everybody else. Oh, you're not a brain surgeon. No, it's not a brain surgeon. So everybody became so intimidated to become a brain surgeon or rocket scientist. So there was no brain surgeons or rocket scientists left. So that created that story. It's just like it's derivative of writing on crankiness, and then when you have these crazy cranky ideas, then the stories just like pop out. So that was like that other story. In Zoodletraz, just Andy's music.
And Andy, how did you come up with the illustration for this book?
I researched loads of different sci-fi drawings from the 60s to 70s, particularly Marvin the Martian, I must admit, because I was a big kind of Looney Tunes fan, and I liked the way that space was portrayed in those Daffy Duck Dodgers kind of thing, and I wanted kind of that anarchy to it. So I created lots of backgrounds. I created the planet Zoodletraz. I created the space stations, lots of different backgrounds, all the characters, and I'd start placing them together. But for me, I like to put lots of things in the background that are maybe nothing to do with the story, but the reader will kind of hone in on them, and that will start their imagination going. So I had things like in space, what are the animals like? I'd have an octo shark, which is a shark and an octopus. I'd have a brainfish, which is totally translucent, that you can see their brain. Just really crazy things. I wanted people to read the novel or the graphic novel, but then also go, oh, what's the story behind this animal? What's the story behind this character? And then maybe start creating their own stories as well.
We have a question that just came in. I just want to get it out to you guys. It's, what message do you hope kids take from this story?
Loads.
Lots of messages.
There's like sustainability of the planet. That's a thing that goes through all 4 books about how you treat the planet. The Zoodles are constantly trying to destroy the planet and make it unworkable. And there's lots about cleaning up the planet, saving the planet. Stephen alluded to
making the world a better place. That's
yeah.
a big thing for me. Creativity, what could come out of creativity. Every book has like either a museum or a venue. So at the end of the first book, in the middle of the first book, there's an art museum. The next book, there's a space exploration museum. Next book, there's an aquarium, water park. Next book, there's this music venue. Zoodletraz goes from being a prison to this great big musical intergalactic island that all performers come and perform. So again, like how we could create something great from creativity and thinking outside the box. And the other thing I always like is redemption, that people make mistakes and you could be redeemed. So you have the first book, Sour Krudelman. He's kind of like on the side, and because he has the Krautmobile that runs on sauerkraut and makes everybody stinky and cranky. But then he invents the prickly peppered purple propulsion powered pickle that he could go light years past the sound of light, whatever, and it creates travel beyond our wildest dreams. So he becomes like really good. The third book, which I haven't talked about, the Zoodles Strike Back. It was like the light bulb in my head, where it's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I was watching that for the 5 millionth time, and I was looking at Charlie, such a like he's the good boy and everything goes well for him, and oh wow, isn't that nice? But what happened to these bad kids? And I was thinking, there's like a media frenzy, like all the TV crammers and the radio people and everybody, the podcasters are all there, and they're humiliated, and they probably have to go back to school, and kids probably are mean and not so nice to them. So I have Frimpy Frumpy Fruddle and Wimpy Whiny Woodle, and Frimpy Frumpy Fruddle has a Fitsy Witsy Popadoodle. He fits and wits, and then he popped. And Wimpy Whiny Woodle has the Swizzly Twizzly Slimadoodle. She swizzled, twizzled, and then she turned into a bucket of slime, and that's not very good. So they become the heroes in the book. So even though they had to make decisions where do they allow Brianna Brainy Brutal and Ricky Rockadoodle to turn into Willy Nillys and Dilly Dallies? It's just that they become the heroes. They say, no, we're going to save the planet, save Noodleham, do the right thing, and everything turned out right. So I love the redemption piece.
I think if you consider social media and the kids at the moment, where they make a mistake, but it's potentially broadcast to millions and it could have a really bad impact on the rest of their lives, these stories are kind of addressing that. Like, it doesn't matter if something bad happens and you're ashamed, there is always a way of redeeming yourself. And we also look at intergenerational relationships, such as like the relationships between parents and kids, and how both sets make mistakes and both sets have to realize they make mistakes and come in the middle to acknowledge their mistakes and move on. I think that's really important in children's books, because there is this, I know this as a teacher, there's this tendency to think that adults know everything, and we don't. And if you can acknowledge that and go, we all make mistakes, it makes it easier for kids to make mistakes, acknowledge their mistakes, and not get so het up in the enormity, or what they think is the enormity of certain decisions that they make. But we try and do it in a fun, creative way with fun, creative characters. So maybe that if a parent is reading this with their children, they can maybe tentatively have conversations like that. It's a good kind of starter for it.
And I think children's books are a good way to bring conversation to the table with children, right? Like, get their input on the story. Did you enjoy the story? Do you want something more? Stephen, you talk about oodles and noodles and all of that, and dilly daddies and binky and bonkies. Did you do you write poetry as well, or you just children's stories?
No. I write like about negotiation. I'm a lawyer, so I write and I teach negotiation. So if I write about stuff, that's what I started out writing for 20 years on negotiation, which I
And
guess
Andy, I know,
is something about that I bring to the books I write here.
and Andy, I noticed with your music, you're a storyteller. And I didn't know you were a teacher, but through your music, I listen to a lot of your music because I'm a country girl.
Oh, thank you.
And I noticed that you're telling stories. So it's almost like the illustrator in you. You tell the story through the song. Do you write your own music?
I co-write the lyrics with my friend Nigel. So we will work on ideas together. But it's always about something that everybody. That's why I love country music. I was brought up with country music. My dad was a big Marty Robbins fan, Dolly Parton. That's why I grew up listening. I still love country music. But it's about kind of their fables, the ballads where it talks about a story, but you can find parallels with your own life. And I think whenever I go into a studio to record music, I'm always thinking, where am I as a person? How is this going to relate to other people? So I try and make it not totally about me, but kind of more expansive. So a lot of people can kind of go, oh, I can see that in myself. I can understand that. Like Lost Souls in the Dark is just a way of feeling like I'm making decisions. There might not be the right decisions. And I feel like a lost soul in the dark. Should I believe myself or should I go on what other people say? I think these are kind of fundamentals that everybody feels at one point or another. And I think country music is almost unique as a music genre in being able to communicate that feeling, which is why I was kind of drawn to it.
And that's where I seen the connection between you and Stephen through the storytelling of this book and the 4 books. There's 4 books, correct?
Yeah. We've done 5 total, but the 4 Snoodles books, yes.
Yeah. I think there's a way,
and that's what I got was like the storytelling joining together, because Lost in the Soul was kind of like the Snoodles, like, we're the mistakes and all that, right? Like you can be silly, you can have fun, but you're also giving a life lesson through that story.
I know as a teacher, children are terrified of making mistakes. I think school is an environment where there is a lot of repercussions for making mistakes, but they don't realize that every great initiative or move forward in human evolution has been made by a mistake. Penicillin was created as a mistake. Products like WD-40. I always say to my kids, WD-40, which is like water diffuser thing. Do you have that in America?
Yes. We do.
It's called.
We have that in Canada too.
Oh God, sorry, Canada. Yeah. So it's called that because there were 39 other versions that didn't work. It could have been called WD-1 and been put in the bin. But they kept going. They learned from their mistakes. They moved forward and created something great. And I'm trying to get my students to understand that mistakes are what move you forward. You learn something from every mistake. And that's what the Snoodles books are really good, because everybody makes mistakes in the Snoodles book. Doesn't matter who you are, what character you are making a mistake. And then we always kind of address the mistakes as a result of that. I'm hoping that kids reading it can, well, that character, Herbie Snoodleman's made a mistake, and Sarah Krudelman's made a mistake, and Brianna has made a mistake. So I can make a mistake and I can learn from it. I think those are really valuable skills, especially with the climate we have today.
Absolutely. It kind of goes into the question that just came in from Matt. Are the Snoodle characters based on real life experiences?
Yeah, in a way, I think.
Yeah, in a way. Like again, it's whether, I don't know what you call real life experiences necessarily. But like for example, Charlie and Chocolate Factory is taken from just watching the the Escape from Zulu Strike Back. That's taken from a movie, but real life experiences. Just like again, I'm writing from crankiness, so where I see people doing things willy-nilly or dilly-dally, and then okay, there's an idea. It's my life experience, or I barely scratched the surface. I think
the thing with
some of the characters, like like not Andy Case, uh, Sour Krudelman. He's like a deli guy, just like, so I grew up on Jewish deli, going to Cass's Delicatessen. So I had this
Yeah.
image of this, this car salesman is also like a deli guy, like slicing pastrami. Um, so it gets all the different, I guess, experiences of life that ends up somewhere in the book in a
I think
weird
the
way.
thing with brain surgery and rocket science, when me and Stephen chatted, he would tell me that his parents used to go, "What are you doing? It's not rocket science. It's not brain surgery." And that's very much taken and exaggerated into this crazy space story, but that's kind of rooted in kind of a childhood experience. We call it Noodleham. They live in Noodleham. I live in Nottingham. So there's that weird mixture of USA influences, North American influences, and European influences mashed together to make this world that is hopefully accessible to everybody. And the Andy Dandy Doodle looks a lot like me, so I've definitely shoehorned myself into that book.
And the one thing, just life experiences. Like somebody asked me, like, who would you want to read the book? And I say it's from age groups from 6 to 99. And Mel Brooks happens to be 99. So I said the person I would want to read the book is Mel Brooks. And a lot of, so I do have that like Mel Brooks type humor infused in there, the off the wall wacky and maybe like Monty Python. So again, it's if you combine like the British humor and that Mel Brooks type humor, that's what you find in these books.
So old school humor.
Yes,
definitely. Yeah.
I like it, because we need to start bringing that old school humor back. That it's not brain surgery and all that. Like to make a bed. My kids are in their 30s and they don't even make their beds. I'm just like, oh my goodness, make your bed. We have a question here: is how do you balance humor with life lessons in your work?
You don't want to be hammering people with a message. There is this tendency in today's books and today's animation to really hammer home a message. It's almost Brechtian in a way. The message becomes more important than the actual entertainment. We want people to laugh, and then maybe when they've laughed, they've considered why they're laughing and they've considered the message that's behind it. So the humor really, if you hook kids with the humor and hook parents with the humor, then they will really kind of understand the message more because they've really engaged with it and really enjoy it. I think there's a tendency for kids just to switch off if you hammer home a message too much.
So it's almost like a nagging parent, right?
Yeah, and then like even my cranky books, I use humor to make a point. So I have like for example, I take Cinderella, and she doesn't the fairy godmother comes and she doesn't get a gown or the carriage. She gets a megaphone and she finds her voice. And I do it in a very funny way. So I have a story, and the story has the lesson in it. Or I have like I have this chapter I write. You hope for the best, but what, like Billy always failed on his test. Why did you fail? Well, I hope for the best, but I only prepared for the worst. So like he only prepared for the worst. He did the worst. So I have this story where like not only hope for the best, but prepare for the best, sort of thing. So again, I use the humor, and I have a story around it, and again, taking that out. Where I have a story with these kids who are willy-nilly and dilly-dally, and what does that mean? And again, it's with the story, but you see it just because like I just could, like one of the kids just put, like, I left it all blank, like because it's not fair, just like and then another kid and put all four, answer all four. because well, one of them will be right. Like again, like use humor to that amplifies what you see is ridiculous, but people act in a way that's ridiculous,
Yeah.
and they could see, and then learn from that, from the ridiculousness that really sends the message. And I think that's a great way to learn.
We have a question here. What was the most fun part of creating the Snoodles universe?
Characters, creating the characters, and then for me as the illustrator, I got a script from Stephen which was nothing like I'd ever read before. Snoodle mobiles, these cars that run on noodles. So me going, I need to create a car that looks like a bowl of noodles, and as an illustrator, that's gold. And then it's like, well, where does this Snoodle mobile live, and what are the different places around them? And then we had like petrol stations that's with like noodles. So you put noodles in your car, and then you have this sumptuous meal when you get home. Then there's the Kraut mobile, so like the difference between the two. And then Stephen goes, we've got a new mobile. It's the Groodle mobile with grimy Groodleman. And I'm like, who is this guy? What does this look like? He's got this house, mucky mansion where he lives. And then he goes and Crudel the Grand Rudel. He's this kid. He's in a nappy, but he's wearing a Pharaoh's hat. It's like,
so
okay.
This is the
Imagine
thing.
getting into both of these guys' heads at the same time. It's
So-
a noodle world.
So this is the thing about collaboration, but the comparison between the first book I did, where you're not collaborating, and what we're doing now. So I'll write a story, and then Andy gets to work, and I don't. It's like Andy will send me like pictures as we go along. So it's like I get Christmas like every couple weeks. Like, it's like, oh, like open up, check that box under the tree. And it's another one, it's another one, it's another one. And then it gets more ideas. And then I might have, oh, about this. And he go, oh, about that. So it's a continuous back and forth collaboration
Some of the best stuff in the book is stuff that's not even in the initial script. Like in the last the Zoodletraz book, we'd finished the book, and then Stephen goes, we need one more page. And we've got these two characters, Pint of Salsa Pepe and Tina Tacadoodle, who run this Mexican restaurant, and they've created this noodle. Is it a noodle? It is a noodle, isn't
they
it?
have the Papadoodle noodle, yeah.
The Papadoodle noodle,
like
which you can put in the Swifty Swoodlemobile, and that gets them into space. So there's a whole kind of methodology and NASA behind this, but we need one more page of them tangoing at the end.
Yeah, so we created, because we already had the musicians, we already created Zoodletraz being this music venue, with you have the Trash Can Cats and all these other characters who are musicians. So might as well throw in some dance to it. So I have Tango Tina and Pint of Pepe salsa, whatever. So they're open up a dance place in Zoodletraz. So that was the extra page.
And then we had like the Octo Sharks in tutus.
And that's where Andy comes in. I don't have these Octo Sharks with tutus, and then like see this, like, oh my God, that's too, it's too much. It's too much. Yeah.
And that's why we have so many books, because there was always new characters coming in, right?
Yes.
Yeah, there's all these characters in the background that we very rarely use. And I have personal favorite characters that have never even spoken in the book. I'm like, do something with this character. And Stephen will go back and go, oh, I'm not sure. But the next book that Stephen's writing at the moment is about Crudel the Grand Rudel, like an origin story, almost like a Superman spoof. It sounds hilarious. It sounds really great. I can't wait to start on that. And we also have a new poodle. We have new poodles in every book. We love poodles, so they come in every book.
Yeah. So and like Crudel the Grand Rudel, he's on the planet Zoodle, but he actually came from the planet Krazoodle, like crazy Krazoodle, and their planet wasn't doing too well. So they put baby Crudel the Grand Rudel. They have to decide between Earth and Zoodle, and they picked Zoodle because they are on the planet Zoodle. So it has to be okay. It has a Zoodle in it. So let's send them. We don't want to send them to Earth. We want to send them to Zoodle. And he has a little dog, Zoodle, and he doesn't allow pets on Zoodle. And the reason why is he's the Grand Roodle, and only the Grand Roodle can have a pet. And he has his pet Zoodle, which and the Zoodle is kind of just like not the best behaving puppy poodle.
But Zoodle is a planet just full of animals. It's all alien animals, and then there's Groodle, who is the only humanoid on the entire planet, and they're all really confused by why they're being led by this guy, and they're all scared of him because he's slightly crazy and narcissistic. He's a toddler, and as soon as he said this story, it was like, well, that makes sense of everything that's happened in the first 4 books. We need this book out because and then there's he's brought in this other planet, the Looney Toony Doodles, where the trash can cats come from. So there's a whole story there. Not to mention, we've got other stuff going on in Noodleham, which kind of needs addressing as well. So we end up asking more questions than we answer in each book. But that's kind of like we'll talk about the imagination deficit, how kids kind of have their imaginations given to them now by technology. And we're kind of trying to do an effort where they're coming up with their own stories. So we give them more than enough so that they come up with their own stories. Or who's this guy? What's his story? How does he fit in with all this crazy?
And it opens up the imagination again. I think we've lost that over generations. Is the imagination? Kids are scared to imagine outside of the box, right?
Yeah, I've seen it in my teaching career that children really struggle with imaginative activities such as creative writing or character profiles a lot more than they used to. And I think when I was young, I was constantly creating characters, drawing. We had no technology. I was creating my own comics, my own designs. And what you can do now with AI and with all these programs, that you can literally create something that looks professional with a touch of a button. Yeah. And I think although that has great benefits, it also has its consequences. And I think anything that helps kids regain that imagination and get themselves off screens a little bit and play a little bit more can only be a good thing.
Well, did either one of you have an imaginary friend growing up when you were a kid?
I had loads. I used to draw them all.
Stephen, did you have an imaginary friend?
I did not have any imaginary. I guess I should start getting imaginary friends.
Well, there was a movie, Drop Dead Fred, or was it?
Rick Mail.
That was a good one.
Yeah.
We have a question here for you guys: is what challenges did you face while creating these books?
From an illustrator point of view, I would say it was difficult when I got the script because Stephen had written this amazing script and it flipped from narrative to script and back again. And what I realized early on is that this couldn't just be a normal conventional children's book. It has to go almost mixed media. So I'd go from narrative points through to a comic strip, back to narration, and the story had to flow. And then we'd add other bits in, like in the fourth book, we have interpretation for the deaf. So we have a character that does that. So it's almost like meta. And at one point, you're looking at a TV show. So the first 6-7 pages is a TV show. Then it flips to the story. Then it flips to a comic book. It's very imaginative, but quite difficult to plan. But when you do get there, you get this incredible book that's so different from any other book I've done.
Well, we have a question here about the illustration. Is how do illustrations enhance the storytelling experience?
In so many ways. I would think that, imagine you took a Dr. Seuss book, which I love, and you took away all the pictures. You wouldn't really know what to make of the book. I think the illustrations help you with pacing, helps you with imagining a world in which this book exists, in which the words exist. You know, I had to create some very crazy, different characters to do the best with the Snoodleverse, but also I had to make them realistic enough not to alienate the audience. So I think that as a parent reading a book with a kid, you could point out, oh, look at that car. It looks like a bowl of noodles. Oh, what do you think it smells like? What other cars could you make out of food products? And it just helps to relay a story with a child who's maybe not got the capacity yet to read their own stories. I think it just helps the relationship between reader and readee. That's not even a word, but you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing, how it enhances the storytelling, since I'm the one telling the story, at least in the beginning, before Andy blows it up, it's the fact that, you know, when you work with somebody as talented as Andy over the course of years, when you have, it just allows my, you know, I already have Andy in my head when I'm trying to think of a story. And the most exciting thing, and I actually write these stories when I'm running, and then something pops in my head when I'm running. Oh my God. But part of that excitement is like, I'm thinking about Andy's going to have fun with this, you know, sort of thing. And like, you know, a lot of people write a story and then they have to find an illustrator, or they don't get to pick the illustrator. But I'm actually get excited about a story because I know the illustrator. I know what I just have what would Andy be doing? And I kind of like have Andy inside me, and I'm being the illustrator myself. I'm not talented like that, but I imagine I have an imaginary Andy in my head. That's my imaginary friend who's drawing these things in my head, and it enhances my own storytelling by this imaginary Andy that came from the real Andy. And then I write the story and give it back, because I have the imaginary Andy. I give it back to the real Andy, and then the real Andy does amazing things with it.
Well, Stephen, there you go. You just have an imaginary Andy that you just admitted to. So you do have an imaginary friend.
Yes, I do. But he's not as good as my real Andy friend. That's the only thing. So I don't want to admit to it.
Well, I want to get into your teas that you guys gave me. And Stephen, I'm going to start with you. Your tea was utilizing skillful means, Binky Bunky Bonkle Noodle. Tell me why you gave me that tea.
Well, utilizing skillful means is something like when I talk about negotiation, and something I used to go to the village Zendo, and the Zen person talked about utilizing skillful means. Binky Bunky Bonkadoodle is just I was, because I am writing or like forming the next book, and it almost has a gladiator type scenario where evil Cadoodle, who becomes the Grand Rudel for a while, has to face Cloodle the Grand Rudel, and they have this so it's almost like sports related, because we haven't touched sports yet. So they have crocodoodles in the water, but evil Cadoodle's kids, and I don't have their names in my head yet, or had them and they left, but they have a Binky Bunky. Maybe they're Binky Bunky, but they have a Bonkadoodle, and I guess Cloodle the Grand Ruler might get bonked a bit. So with a Binky Bunky Bonkadoodle, and you know that's probably, you know, it's probably like something that came out of, like, you know, even The Incredibles. Like, I loved that movie. So you have the little baby, and so there's pieces of that comes into the story. So that's where the Binky Bunky Bonkadoodle flowed from, and just something like dumb in my head.
Well, Stephen, how many noodles are in your head?
But the thing is, my father always would yell, "Use your noodle, use your noodle." He would always yell at me to use my noodle. And I tried to use my noodle. Again, you talked about like things, life experiences. So Herbie Snoodleman also is a brain surgeon, and he figured like how like people's brains are filled with noodles, and you have these noodle operations. So, but that comes from my father yelling at me to use my noodle. So I guess there's a lot of noodles.
I love how you bring the humor into this book and these books. For the parents out there and grandparents out there, go and get some noodles. Go get some Snoodle noodles. Andy, let's get into your tea. The tea that you gave me was terrifically engaging artwork and never give up. Why'd you give me that tea?
Engaging artwork. I want stupid, funny, bright visual illustrations. There is this tendency at the moment, especially with certain children's books, that they're very pastel-y. They're almost like, this book would look great on a coffee table, but I don't feel the kid in me. You were talking about who's the kid in you. The kid in me would not like reading some of these books with some of these drawings. They're very boring. I can't do that. So my illustration is really not for everybody. And don't give up. That comes from teaching. That comes from being told I'm not good enough a lot, but kept going anyway. And I think if you keep going, you keep believing, you will get somewhere. And if you don't get anywhere, you will at least know why you didn't get somewhere. And that might take you onto a different path where you do get somewhere. And I always say to my kids, the best way to fail is to never try. But if you keep trying, you're going to get somewhere. And I think that's what Snoodles has taught me, because it came at a point where I was maybe not at, I was a bit of a low. I just finished teaching. I'd given up teaching for a bit. It all got a bit too much for me. And I decided to go on as an illustrator. It was a bit of a risk. And this message from heaven came from Stephen within 2 weeks of me giving up teaching to do this crazy book. And we've been on this madcap journey ever since. And it's made my career. And it's been the privilege of my life to do this book. And had I given up, I'd have never had the chance to do this. So,
and just the one thing I think, like it comes from, it's from these books, like not like what Andy talks about. One chapter in my grown-up guide to effective crankiness are about caterpillar Crankotsaurus, and these caterpillars, and it's like, again, my parents like as if they're caterpillars and they'll never become a butterfly, and they want their children to become butterflies. So these books are written for any kid who, like, you know what, I'm going to become a butterfly. And like as if my parents, they felt like we could never become, we're just stuck as caterpillars, but we think our kids could become butterflies. And I think that's the thing I want kids to take from these, that they can learn how to fly. They don't have to stay as a caterpillar.
I think that's a real, real lesson for the children out there, especially in today's society, because like Andy, like you said, kids are scared of making mistakes, and society is really hard on them. If you make a mistake, it goes viral, right? Everyone's posting it. And then you have that team, bullying and that online. So you guys have 5 books. So is the 5th book coming out soon? Should we look out for it? All that good stuff.
We're just promoting the 4th book at the moment. Stephen's working on the 5th, and he's coming up with some incredible ideas. So watch this space. But we're looking at making a website for the Snoodleverse where you can get all 4 books. You can see more about the characters. We're just developing that now. We're having chats about maybe trying to turn it into an animated series as well. So there's a lot happening in the Snoodleverse, but there will be more books coming, hopefully. Stephen needs to do more running.
That was my next question, if you guys were going to make animated series, because it sounds like it would be an awesome series. And just to get the kids to say those words, like Stephen, like your snoodle noodle, use your noodle, like, just kind of get the noodle word out there. When they came out with the pool noodle, were you excited, Stephen?
When they came out with the poodle word?
The pool noodle. Like
Poodle noodle.
the things that you used to go swimming with. Did that bring any excitement to you?
No. I like in the Bronx, we water is not like, yeah, no, you don't do skiing, the water, like, yeah, it's dirty, whatever. Yeah, it's not much. No, I didn't know about
You're
a
not a
poodle
water guy,
noodle.
are you?
No.
If you guys could describe Snoodle Universe in one word, what would it be?
Noodle-tastic.
Oh,
Wackadoodle, like
wackadoodle.
that was like when we try to cover the first book, the Wackadoodle Tale from Outer Space, Wackadoodle. Now we have Duopadoodle because of the music.
And your favorite character in Snoodles that you had to illustrate and that you had to create?
Ooh, that's hard because there's so many I love. I have a particular favorite character that never ever gets mentioned, but it's Dr. Quackadoodle, who is this terrified doctor on Zoodle, who's a duck, and he's part of the Zoodles, and he's just so much fun to draw. I like the little Zoobots as well. There's little robots that look like Z's, and they just float about. Or they're never part of the story, but I just put them in the background everywhere. I love drawing them as well. They're really fun.
I like, we have Doodoo Cadoodle, and he's from the planet Zoodle, and he looks like this quiet, timid, kind of nebbishy poodle, or he's not even a poodle. He's a Zoodle. He falls in love with Droodle the poodle, very beautiful poodle from the planet Earth, and they get married, which is not allowed on the planet Zoodle. So then he found love. I just like Doodle Cadoodle found love on a different planet, and then of course Droodle the poodle gets kidnapped to Zoodletraz because of that, and then he goes out and he helps save her. So yeah, Doodle Cadoodle is, but again, it's a tough one. I like a lot of them are fun.
And if Snoodles in space were one feeling, what would it be?
Feeling.
What's the question?
If Snoodles in space were one feeling, what would it be?
Intrepidation.
Oh, that's a new word.
Possibilities.
Possibilities. And what's the biggest lesson you'd like to let the readers and the kids get from all of the books?
Embrace mistakes.
Learn how to become a butterfly.
I love it. And Stephen, what's your final message for the listeners? And then Andy, give me your final message.
The final message is that we're creating books that open our eyes that this world could be a better place in the future, and sometimes it doesn't always look like that. But if you expand your mind and think of anything as possible, that's what's going to happen. So that's what I try to convey.
My final message is Snoodles in Space series is available on Amazon to buy now. Buy it. Read it.
Go out and get it.
And other websites. Yeah.
And if you guys would like to shout out your websites, Stephen, I have yours up, and then Andy, I'll pull yours up.
Okay. StephenJosephAuthor.com. That's where you can see all Stephen's blogs and stories and Cranky Cirrus series and Snoodles. It's an amazing website. It's great. You can catch mine at andycaseillustration.com. All my music is on Spotify, Andy Case, and also on andycasemusic.bandcamp.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I really enjoyed this conversation with you guys. It was a blast having you guys here. I got some snoodles in today. I got some giggles in today. I'm just going to do a wrap up of what today's tea time was, and I will see everybody at 7 p.m. with the second tea time of today. What a joyful and inspiring conversation. Andy and Stephen, thank you for reminding us that creativity is not just for children. It is something we all need to hold on to. Through your work, you've shown us that humor, imagination, and a little bit of stillness can carry powerful lessons about resilience, teamwork, and thinking differently. This afternoon, we were reminded that sometimes the best solutions come from stepping outside the expected, embracing creativity, and allowing ourselves to see the world through a more playful lens. Your collaboration shows us what happens when talent, vision, and heart come together. You created something that's not only entertains, but truly impacts how people think and feel. To everyone listening, here is something to carry with you after this tea time. When was the last time you allowed yourself to think outside of the noodle? Because sometimes the most unexpected ideas lead to the biggest breakthroughs. Until our next cup, keep sharing, keep creating, keep imagining, and keep bringing a little more joy into the world. And I'll see everybody at 7 p.m. with the second tea time.